Hey guys, we're going to do our review for the upcoming unit test. Now if you take a look at the map, you can see the Nile River and you can basically see Egypt. Now you see the big green delta part, that's the Nile River Delta. That's on the northern end of the Nile where it empties into the Mediterranean Sea, which is also labeled. You can see the eastern and western deserts, and you can also see the Red Sea as well as the Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula, Red Sea, Eastern Desert, as well as the Western Desert make up geographical barriers that kept people out of Egypt, as did the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean was a barrier up until technology was invented that allowed for the successful crossing of the Mediterranean by different groups of people. It's important to note when you think about Egypt's geographical situations, how many resources they had available to them. They had a lot of coal located there, not coal, excuse me, they had a lot of gold located there. They had other minerals. They had rich deposits of copper, nickel, and they were in a good geographical situation as compared to Mesopotamia. And so when you think about Egypt, there's two things that should come in mind as geography comes. A, isolation, and B, rich geographical resources, rich mineral resources. Okay, rich mineral resources and geographical isolation. The Egyptians were also extremely religious people. Now remember, their religion is basically based on nature. If you look at most of their gods, they reflect the natural world around them. One of the most you should remember the most is the Ammit, A-M-M-I-T, Ammit. And he is the devourer, the one who eats the souls. He is an excellent example of the way their gods are combined with nature, and their religion is a representative of their natural world. Ammon is 1/3 crocodile, 1/3 hippo, and 1/3 lion. And this shows you the importance of nature in their religion, because those are the three most dangerous things in their religion. Yet they're combined to form a god who is called the devourer or destroyer of souls. One of the basic assets of or facets of Egyptian religion is this concept of mummification. Mummification is a process of preserving the body, and the reason for this process is that it keeps the body recognizable by the Ba and the Ka, basically by the two souls. So the two souls can come back and they can find the body and enter into the afterlife. Now once they enter in the afterlife, they will be judged again, their hearts will be judged against the weight of a feather by Anubis. If their hearts outweigh a feather, then they will be thrown to devour Ammit. If their hearts are found to be pure and are lighter than a feather, they will be going on to the good afterlife. And their good afterlife is just basically a representation of their current life, but the best of it. Remember, the social class in Egypt remained in place even after death. And so Egyptian religion is also one that runs the government as a whole. Now if you think about Egyptian religion, the head of the religion is the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh is also the ruler of a country, the country of Egypt, or the civilization of Egypt, which makes Egypt a theocracy. And a theocracy is a government headed by a religious leader. And this is probably one of the best examples of a theocracy that you can see. The Pharaoh, as part of a religious leader, as part of being a religious leader, is an example of balance. Is in charge of balancing Mot and Isfet. Basically, Mot being everything is in order, everything's good, and Isfet, everything is chaos. And it's the Pharaoh's role to maintain balance in these two. Everything was in Mot generally when the upper and lower Egypt was united. Everything was in Isfet during periods of natural disaster or invasion, or when the government was not united. The two Egypts were not united. Hey guys, now it's time to talk a little architecture. Now what you see now is an obelisk. Notice the size and the shape. It looks very similar to Washington Monument, which is an example of ancient art influence in modern. You now see the Sphinx with its giant paws. Remember, the giant paws leads to a doorway that people could walk under it. And before you are the Great Pyramids of Giza. All right, now make sure you can compare the Great Pyramids of Giza's purpose to that of the ziggurat, which you now see in front of you, which is found in Mesopotamia. The Great Pyramids were essentially tombs, while the ziggurat was a worshiping center. Two differences, guys, is right there is that the ziggurat was made for worship. The pyramid was made for a tomb. Two different things, but both similar in that they're religious structures, very important religious structures. And one of the questions I want you to think about is why did they invest so much time and money into these religious structures? Whether it be a tomb like the pyramids or the ziggurats like you find in Mesopotamia. Think about that. Now we're going to talk a little agriculture. Now take a look at this shadoof right in front of you. I had to hard time saying it, but shadoof. Okay, it was used when the water level was low. They lifted the bucket up. They irrigated the fields. It could take 12 hours just to irrigate a half an acre. Okay, so did they just have one shadoof on the canal? No, they had hundreds. Okay, now the shadoof is important because it allowed Egyptians now to raise two crops. For those farms that could not reach the waters of the Nile by irrigation nets directly, they can now use these shadoofs all year around to funnel water to these other farms that enable now there to be two crops to be grown during the year. That's the importance of the shadoof, because with the two crops came more people. With the more people came larger population and greater job diversity. Hey guys, now you remember the three kingdoms. And the kingdoms aren't kingdoms as in a political unit, they're historical periods. There's the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The Old Kingdom is known as the Pyramid Kingdom. It was during the time which the pyramid made. It was when Egypt was united for the first time. The Old Kingdom fell due to internal struggles. Then after a few hundred years, the Middle Kingdom arose. The Middle Kingdom is known as the Golden Age of Egypt. That's when arts and trade flourished. The Middle Kingdom fell after invasions by the Hyksos, Hyksos, and they were eventually defeated, and the New Kingdom started. The New Kingdom was, basically known as the conquest period, and very prosperous time, but their reign was ended by the Assyrians. After the Assyrian conquest of Egypt, Egypt was really never a world power. After that, then it was conquered by the Assyrians, then it was conquered by the Persians, after the Persians, the Greeks, and then the Romans, and the final emperor died, or final pharaoh died in 30 BC. That was Cleopatra. Now let's talk a little bit about the Egyptian trade. Egyptians used the Nile to trade with Central Africa for things like leopard skins and certain resources like salt. They also traded across the Red Sea as well as in the Mediterranean area. You can tell a lot by what the economy was like by taking a look at what they traded for. They would often trade gold and other things. They had plentiful things of like wheat and barley for things they didn't have a lot, like ivory and iron. You can also see the similarity in the economy between the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians, and that a lot of the prices were set by the king, by the pharaoh. Just like in Mesopotamia, they control prices, how much something would cost. And so they had a great deal of control over the economy, which would make it a command economy, since it was the king who was setting the prices for everything. And they also had a great deal of job diversification. You can take a look on the Padlet, which I showed you about the different jobs, but they had everything from construction workers to architects and to priests to scribes. Great deal of job diversification, which was supported by this advance in agriculture. Finally, this job diversification that they had within their economy led to a social structure based on jobs. If you take a look at the social structure and the social structure pyramid, you can see the pyramid is literally based on the type of jobs that were out there. So the social structure determined the type of job that the person had, meaning that, you know, where you fit on that social structure was equivalent to the job you did within society. And there was some movement up and down the social structure. And that could be done by marriage. It could also be done once in a while by somebody teaching you a trade. But a lot of times this only happened if the person didn't have a son. Because a lot of times these trade people, like the merchants will train their sons, the scribes will train their sons, the craftsmen will train their sons. So if you had a craftsman who didn't have a son, you were lucky enough to be selected, you could move upward. Very few people moved up beyond the merchant. You just don't get to be a scribe. Scribes you generally have to be born into. You had to have a lot of money for the training, and really, you know, the highest you could actually move up was probably the merchant class. Okay, at the end of this, you're going to see the review questions, and just take a look at those. Well, I moved the test till Tuesday, and hope you guys, you know, enjoy the video, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.